Tell me when.
And we're recording.
Hello, everybody. It's Paulie and Me Show. I'm Loren Margulies, and I'm here with...
Paulie Warshauer. I'm the Paulie in the Paulie and Me.
And I'm the me part. Paul and I are discussing stuff as we do from time to time. Sometimes there's arguing, sometimes there's hugging, but we'd like to keep that to a minimal.
Especially at this time. So.
Especially at this time. Hey, I've got a funny one. What am I?
A ficus. You're a ficus.
No, I'm between two ferns. Ha! Ha!
First of all, those are not ferns. Those are ficus.
It's what I had.
Okay, it's what you have to work with. All right.
Zach Galifianakis would appreciate that.
He would.
So today, Paul and I, as we do, discussing various topics, subjects, things, we're talking about movies, and which is a pretty broad topic. But we were focusing mainly on gangster kind of movies.
That's correct. Crime and gangsters.
Yeah. So obviously we both have our different opinions. Mine being a little smarter than his, but whatever. You know, he is. This is what I will give Paul. He's a well-studied, well-educated person.
Pardon me, it's a bagel. It went down the wrong pipe. The bagel.
Okay.
All right.
And when he does make a point, it does come from a well-educated and well-studied point of view. So, but I'm just smarter than him, and that's it. That's it.
Now, the only reason I'm going to agree is he can beat the crap out of me. But let's just say, for the argument, that I come from an intellectual background. He comes from the streets, so to speak. The streets. Right outside. The streets. Yes. White boy from the streets of Los Angeles.
Yeah. From the valley.
From the valley. The tough valley. All right. Anyway, so here we go. We're going to pick 3 movies. We'll bounce back. We'll bounce back and forth. I think the best crime and gangster movie ever made, and it's on my top 5 of all time, is The Godfather Part 2. First of all, it stars an incredible cast. It continues the story and goes forward, but in the middle, the whole backstory of the Corleone crime family. Tremendous performances, tremendous cinematography, great direction of Francis Ford Coppola, and of course, Robert De Niro wins the Academy Award for not speaking a word of English. It's true. He spoke the whole thing in Italian, but his mannerisms and his activity and his the furrowed brow and the concern he has for building an empire and a family, basically for protecting his family. You see this whole theme, carry out from New York to Italy, revenge, retribution, and so forth. So that, for me, best gangster picture ever, Godfather Part 2.
Okay, my turn. Paul's going Italian gangsters. I'm going to go a bit of a different direction. I'm going Irish gangsters.
Ooh.
Thank you. Who were gangsters, for the information of the studio audience, in this country, before the Italians were gangsters. So if you do a little studying on the subject, you'll find out Irish gangsters, then Jewish, then Italians. And eventually the Italians took over.
Well, I'd have to say the Dutch were also in there earlier. If you go back to Daniel Day-Lewis's movie of the 5 Gangs of New York, or whatever it was called.
Yeah, that wasn't the Dutch. That was the Irish.
That was the Dutch versus the Irish.
No, that's not true. It was the American. It was the American-born Irish against the Irish coming over. That's why Daniel Day-Lewis's group was the Irish Nationals. This is true.
All right. I thought they were Dutch. Maybe the Dutch got pushed out by the Irish early. Anyway, go on. It's your turn.
Sure. So that being said, and he brought it up, even though it's hard to argue as just sheer movie quality, Godfather 2, I can't argue that in my top 3 movies. But the movie I'm going to throw out, Gangs of New York. With,
great film on so many levels.
Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis and Leonardo DiCaprio, and it depicted the irony of it was the Irish against the Irish, but it was the Irish in America that didn't want the Irish immigrants coming over during the potato famine, didn't want those immigrants coming to America, so they actually fought the Irish coming to America. So those were that was sort of the conflict. If you watch the movie, the first big gang battle that Daniel Day-Lewis has with Ian Neeson is Daniel Day-Lewis's groups were all Irish that were here, and Ian Neeson's groups were the Irish that had been coming over to America as immigrants. And Ian Neeson says to Daniel Day-Lewis before they go at it, he goes, "You've been hounding us since we got here."
Right.
Referring to the fact they would throw bricks at the ships as the people got off the ships, and they were just horrible to them. So that's
your pick
movie on my list.
All right. So I go back and way back in history. I'm a film student. I studied movies at Northwestern and watched. I'm fortunate to have some great teachers. One of the best movies for many decades was Public Enemy with Jimmy Cagney, which shows the early birth of kind of the Irish mob, but of gangsters in general. I don't think they really focus so much on his heritage as they did on his bad behavior and his, again, trying to consolidate power and make a lot of money. Public Enemy '1 is just fabulous, well shot, well scripted, and again, a great cast from top to bottom. So 1930s, I think somewhere in there. Public Enemy, my number 2 pick.
Okay, my number 2 pick is a more modern movie. Actually, my next 2 picks are more modern movies. This one is not Irish gangsters per se, but it's crime in Boston, which again is sort of an Irish on Irish crime, and it's The Town with Ben Affleck.
Oh.
And him and his group, they're Irish guys. This is in Boston, and they're bank robbers. And it's him and Jeremy Renner, and it's just a well done movie. And it's got what's his name, the really good looking guy from Mad Men, the lead guy.
John Hamm.
John Hamm plays the FBI agent in it. So I just think it's a great movie. The acting's great, the action is great, and the theme of the movie is interesting. The theme of the movie is interesting. So that's my number 2.
Okay, now remember, these are just 3 my representative ones. They're not necessarily my favorite movies, but they represent a variety of. Clearly, I could have picked Scarface or Goodfellas. Those are the 2 that are kind of on everybody's list. I really didn't like Scarface because of Al Pacino's terrible accent. And I think it's a little bit offensive to the Cubans and Latin Americans that came over here. I think he's Cuban.
Right.
And say hello to my little friend. And he holds up a gun and shoots everybody. It's not a very positive portrayal of Cuban Americans who came over here.
It's not warm and fuzzy.
No, not warm and fuzzy. And he gets what's coming to him at the end. But again, it's all shot on this backdrop of the boat people that came over here, and the very great discrimination against the Cubans by the American government, even though a lot of these people were political prisoners. Clearly, Pacino's character plays a gangster in Havana, and he wants to become a gangster in Miami, and he surpasses any expectation. So that's on my 2.5 list. Goodfellas is just a great film all around. Again, it's the Irish and just great characters. And of course, it stars one of my favorite actors of all time, Joe Pesci. So I'm sorry, I snuck 2 in there, but they're kind of tied for 3rd place.
Love Joe Pesci. Okay, and my last one would be a rather recent one, and it would be Black Mass,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is basically the Whitey Bulger story. Johnny Depp played Whitey Bulger, did a remarkable job. I mean, just morphed into the character. And the Whitey Bulger story was fascinating. You know, he was the head of the mob in Boston for years. He killed a ton of people, unfortunately, got away with it because he was also an informant. And the one
For the FBI.
Yeah, the one he informed to was the FBI agent who would tip him off
Yeah, yeah.
anytime they had a confidential informant. So the real FBI people couldn't figure out why all their confidential informants were disappearing. It's because the bad FBI guy was telling Whitey Bulger he would go out and kill him. So it was a great story. And what I love is, you know, FBI's most wanted list. Is he in Ireland? Is he in Scotland? Is he in England? Where is he? He's in Santa Monica.
Living in a small apartment.
Living in a small apartment in Santa Monica, walking his dog. And that's where they end up catching him in the garage of his building.
And he had been off the radar for what, decades? They couldn't find him anywhere.
So for 20 years, he's been hiding out in Santa Monica. I love that.
Well, those are 6 or 7 of our favorite films, are representative of, you know, of great gangster pictures. If you watch this in the comments below, go ahead and put your favorite gangster movie and your reasons behind it, because we gave a plethora of great, you know, obviously of great explanation and of historic basis. Now, we didn't even talk about the comedies based on crime and all that other stuff, like Bugsy Malone, the one with the pies and the kids and all that. That was a wonderful stuff. We didn't even talk about the satires of great gangster pictures, but
that's a whole nother
discussion. Comedies about so-and-so. Well,
when you're talking movies, there's a number of categories because there's so many different genres of movies, and each one, you know, has its own best.
And we will get to them all, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get to historic fiction. We'll get to romance comedies, rom-coms. We'll get to biographies. You know, so we'll get to them all. We'll get to them all. So that's it for us. I'm Paulie.
And I'm Loren, saying goodbye from Dallas, Texas.
Saying goodbye from Sleepy Eye, Minnesota. Bye.
Bye.